stop the attack. And this is, again, kind of a slightly similar representation. So if you're looking at, like I mentioned, across segmentation, threat protection, and encryption. So Azure Firewall can kind of cover all those. It's used to help segment your network. It typically goes in what we would call the hub, in a hub and spoke topology. It's got threat protection, so it leverages our threat intel capabilities, which Jonathan briefly mentioned as well during his presentation. And then it has encryption, so it can decrypt basically the traffic that's coming in. Inside of your network, it's going east and west. So between services on the back end, it can help decrypt any traffic that goes through it. And DDoS protection is all about threat protection, obviously. And Azure Bastion, which is it gives you sort of a secure remote access. It's basically what used to be a jump server, right? So this is a platform as a service version that we offer, and it's all around segmentation again and encryption, because you would have a secure connection to Azure Bastion, and then from Azure Bastion into services within your virtual network, you would also have encryption. It just kind of helps prevent those from being exposed to the network to the outside. And then the usual bits behind the scenes with virtual network security groups, private link, which is a way to, as opposed to having to have all of your traffic go over the internet or a public backbone with a public IP address, even if you don't really need it, it just ensures that any service which is using private link is a kind of a point-to-point connection between that service and, say, so for example, it could be a SQL server on the back end and a web application firewall or something like that at the front end, and it would just make sure that connection between the back end and front end is completely private. And so I was already mentioning sort of Azure Firewall. So this is our cloud-native stateful firewall as a service, and it is level layer 3 to layer 7, so which is networking layer to application layer, right? But for the most part, it's more of a traditional stateful firewall as a service. So you get the standard features you would expect: built-in high availability, auto scaling, network and application traffic filtering. Using what is called Defender for Cloud, you can have centralized policy management. So you can have a single pane of glass within Defender for Cloud and manage all your policies from there across all your VNets and subscriptions. And you put it in your central VNet, which in most installations is going to be called a hub VNet. And you basically use it to filter all inbound or outbound outside of the, anything goes to the hub. Basically, you would route through this Azure Firewall to make sure you get some traffic inspection, right? And centralized logging, and which you could plug into Azure Sentinel, or what is now called Microsoft Sentinel, our cloud-native SIEM. So you can kind of correlate activities, what Azure Firewall sees with any other activities within your network. So you can take those logs, have them sent to Microsoft Sentinel, or even your own SIEM if you don't want to use Microsoft SIEM, and get that visibility. And it's obviously what it is our cloud-native one. It's quite amazing for Azure because it integrates with DevOps. It leverages all the tagging we have available for networking, the fully qualified domain name tags, service tags, integrates with app service environments, backup, and all the other Azure services. But if you do want more, we have a next-gen firewall as a service, which was released in general availability not too long ago, which gives you all the extra features that you would expect from all the other sort of next-gen firewalls. So you can inspect Tls traffic. Typically, this is used, for outbound. If you want, like if you have, virtual desktop machines within Azure and you want to see what they're doing, where they're going, etc., you'd have them go through Azure Firewall, right? It could decrypt the traffic, inspect where they're going, and then they can do URL filtering, categories, etc., all that, which you would expect in any sort of modern, next-gen firewall today. So it has all that, including IDPS, signatures, web categories, URL filtering. Again, it's like pretty much about any other next-gen firewall, except it's just like the standard version. It's a cloud-native one, fully highly available, not as much for you to manage, and you can manage the policies, etc., centrally from Defender for Cloud at no additional cost. But say, once you get towards sort of protecting the VNet, so all services within Azure do have distributed denial of service protection by default, right? But what you get with the basic one is just a couple of features. You're just going to have basically traffic monitoring and automatic attack mitigation, right? But with DDoS protection standard, which is an additional is an additional cost. Obviously, it's not the free one. You get it utilizes our global network. So at the moment, we've got over 60 regions, 50 terabits of mitigation capacity, 450 attack mitigations available per day, etc. So it leverages that huge global scale we have to, make any impact of a DDoS is going to be even less with this standard version. So it has protection policies which are tuned to your application traffic profile. So it continually profiles what is normal public IP traffic, and uses machine learning to sort of set up a mitigation threshold, which you can tweak some of these settings, but it is sort of able to learn what is your standard traffic patterns, right, to help you, mitigate what is actually a DDoS attack and not just sort of some high traffic on a given day, right? And it provides, flow logs, attack snapshots, etc. If there's an attack, you get a full attack summary at the end. It also gives you access to what's called to DDoS rapid response, which is it gives you access to our special team we have for that, which if you buy it, so it is quite a bit, but the rapid response team is really good. So you get access to that and mitigation policy configuration from there. And basically, what you don't get with the standard version, with the sort of free version, is SLA guarantee and cost protection. So you get 99.99% SLA guarantee if you use this, right? That you wouldn't necessarily have with the free version. And you can see I kind of talked about DDoS protection free. You're just getting traffic monitoring, always on detection and attack mitigations, but DDoS protection, you have just so many more features, right? And as with all the products, if you go to the docs page here at the bottom, you can kind of see a more detailed discussion of, maybe why you should consider DDoS protection standard over free. So if you're running if you're just running a standard service, which you aren't too bothered about, obviously the free is fine. But if you're running, something that's very important to you and you need that, the extra availability guarantees, etc., and you want to integrate with, say, Azure Sentinel to get that visibility of DDoS activity there, and definitely in the cloud as well, then you need to consider the standard one. Azure Bastion, as I kind of mentioned earlier, so this is kind of akin to a jump box, but it's our platform as a service version of it. So it gives you secure access to machines in your Azure environment without needing to expose their public IP addresses, which you never want to expose the public IP address unless you have a need to. So if you have a public-facing website that you want to expose to the public, then of course, use a application gateway or a front door to expose it. But for virtual machines on your backend, please don't do that. Use something like Azure Bastion. So you basically set it up. It's kind of like a jump box with PaaS service wrapper. So for all intents and purposes, you're not going to notice much difference from that. You just don't have to maintain a jump box. You're going to basically have one-click access into the Bastion server, and then from there you can use SSH or RDP to the private IP addresses on the back end. So yeah, again, please don't expose your systems directly.